Welcome to Generation Dragons episode 62. Steve, we're together again.
Together in the sand. And we didn't have to make a fake ching.
Yeah, true.
Thank you for coming over. I'm glad you're here.
Always happy to come by.
I don't think anyone's seen this side of my room. You're not seeing it all, but usually it's camera zoomed in a little bit more on it. But
Well, no, Steve and I are, connected so
together.
close. As we talk about being so close, we're talking about emotional games today, guys. Games that, and girls, the games that had hit pretty deep, cut deep to Steve and I.
I think we should add a couple honorable mentions. I didn't put in the list, but a couple I just thought about. I was thinking, but I think we hit the most impactful games to each of us first.
Yep.
And then maybe a couple honorable mentions, depending on time. We're trying to keep it quick. And where are we at? About a minute or so.
Yeah, for sure. Steve, go ahead if you want to kick it off.
All right, so for me, probably the first game in my life that was super impactful was Super Mario Brothers.
Right.
The original Super Mario Brothers, I'm talking like back in 1986, playing that at my friend's house. It wasn't the first Nintendo game I played. It was the first Nintendo game that grabbed me, and it was just amazing. But loved that game to death. It brought me into Nintendo, made me obsess about having a Nintendo.
Right.
I was an Atari boy at that point, and that game, just the way it looked and the graphics compared to the Atari, blew me away and dragged me in.
Anything compared to the Atari blows anyone away.
Right, but I can't disagree with a lot of that because I really think graphics started to look really good 8-bit and up.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I mean, look at a lot of the games that are coming out now, and it's a lot of 2D, 8-bit, 16-bit era style games, mostly 16-bit. But yeah, I mean, for me, this is emotional games that have hit pretty deep, deep cuts. So a big one for me is Shenmue.
My name is Ryo Hazuki. My father was killed by the warlord Lan Di. During my quest for vengeance, I've traveled far and wide and consorted with numerous unsavory characters. But enough about me. Let's talk about you, Nozomi.
Brian?
Who's Nozomi?
Shenmue on Dreamcast, rated T for teen.
Just how that game was written. It's coming up to 22 years old, so spoilers. But if you haven't played Shenmue
By now,
it's a young student who watches his father be murdered, and you're trying to find out who killed your dad.
Yep.
Lang Di. You're looking for Lang Di. Anyways, but that was really what got me in. It kind of got me into.
It was a good game.
It was a good game. It would
Very
throw
big.
me in. It was one of the biggest, most, highest spent game to make the game at the time.
Even if you think about it, like one of the things that blew me away about the game was being able to play video games in the game. I was like, it's a different level of reality to me, and it really trapped me in. I didn't play it, I don't think, till later, because I didn't have Dreamcast right away.
Right.
And I got one later. I had a buddy who bought all this stuff new all the time, and then he'd get bored and pretty much give it to me or trade it to me for something. And his whole thing was basically, if I get rid of it, my wife/girlfriend at the time would let me get something new.
I love the game. Back Shenmue 3. Can't wait for Shenmue 4. It really pushed me over the edge. It got me into gaming, we're going to say adult gaming, but I was a little teenager, but that's when it got me into caring about those types of games.
Gotcha. Well, moving on then about caring about games. One of the ones that really, really trapped me in and sucked me in would have been a 16-bit Super Nintendo game you might have heard of called The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past.
I don't know. I don't think I've ever heard of
Right,
that.
you know? And that game I could not stop playing. I just didn't know what I was getting into. I played Zelda and Link before, and
Yeah.
I take that back. I knew what I was getting into. I didn't realize the in-depthness of the game
Yeah.
versus, the
yeah.
older ones. And I didn't realize how good I was and how in-depth I was in the game when a buddy and some pals that we all played football with was talking about The Legend of Zelda Link to the Past. Have you played this game, this and that? And that? And then my pal who watched me play, he'd just come over and watch me play.
Yeah.
He's like, have you guys made it to the mirror world? And they're like, there's a mirror world? And he's like, oh my God, you guys suck. I mean, like, you're going to get there regardless.
Yeah,
But in one of those moments, I was like, yeah, I'm the shit.
Yeah, that's funny.
But it was a great game. I was soaked in.
Yeah.
But yeah, just for the sake of moving on, what would you go with?
Well, I'll stick with Zelda. I mean, Skyward Sword was a big one.
Do you have what it takes to wield the sword? Embark on the most challenging Zelda adventure yet. The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword, only on Wii. Rated everyone 10 and up.
And I think Skyward Sword got, a lot of people, there's a lot of hate for Skyward Sword, but as you're well aware, my wife walked down to Zelda's Lullaby in our wedding.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was playing,
That was amazing, by the way.
The Wii version, OG, when it got released, Zelda's Lullaby I was playing, and it would always get, it always cut deep. And really, anytime I hear Zelda's Lullaby in any of the Zelda games, always gets me because, right? Standing up there, watching my wife walk down the aisle to Zelda's Lullaby while my buddy was playing it on guitar.
Pulls the heartstrings, man.
Yeah.
And that, even me pulls the heartstrings, not to your level, but like anytime I hear that, I'm just like, oh, awesome.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, so I'll take the next one. I think I'm going to say an Atari game, even though you don't like them. But this game gave me imagination. So the game is called Yars Revenge.
You're a fly named Yar on a quest in space. You attack the shield of the Kotile space. But watch out, Yar. He knows where you are. Yar's Revenge is new from Atari. Have you played Atari today?
With ion zones and evil drones, there's nothing else like Yars Revenge, the way out space game that's new from Atari. Who else?
Have you played Atari today?
Revenge, okay.
And you had, it looked like a bug, the ship, but you essentially were attacking this fortified base that fired giant missiles at you, or beams of energy, and had a floating missile. But you had like this strip of a neutral zone where you could float into and it wouldn't hurt you. But you literally had to attack the structure with the ship and it'd be like eating away, but you'd have to avoid not getting hit.
Wow, okay.
And then once you finally opened it up, you had your own super weapon that you had to fire on yourself and then move out of the way, and it would take it out. And then you go on to the next level, and games of that day, it was just repetitive. Same thing, different design. But in my head, it was like, I'm in the neutral zone, I'm in space, it's almost like Star Trek, and, which it isn't at all, but in my head at the time when I was a kid. But that game really just captured my imagination and emotion.
Right, yeah. No, that's sweet. That's sweet. I mean, for me, it was, the next one for me is The Last of Us.
The world's been hard on us. Hard on him. Joel's done some terrible things. He tells me that on this journey, you either hang on to your morals and die, or do whatever it takes to survive. Guess I'll find out.
Rated M for mature.
It comes up, it's being re-released, it's being remastered, remade, whatever the F they're calling it, for the PlayStation 5, but originally on the PS3. Just the choices and the impact that you have to do in that game, especially as a dad, and seeing what they had to go through.
You're not wrong there, because I actually put myself in those shoes in that game.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, and it's just like game changer. Honestly, game changer of like holy crap.
Yeah.
What would I do in that point, right? And then you come into Last of Us Part 2 and the same kind of thing, and you watch something happen in that game, Part 2, where you're just like, how is that even possible? Why? How, right? And Naughty Dog got a lot of flack for it. Right?
It was an awesome game, though.
Yeah.
And I think now that I have older kids, because when I first played it, my kids were younger. I can totally see my daughter reacting the way Ellie, is it? If I remember, or not Ellie, yeah. It's been a while, but acting just like that, and the whole conversations, and then putting her in those shoes where I would lose her or something like that, in a zombie apocalypse kind of thing scenario. But it's just like, wow, that's like really tugs on your heartstrings.
Yeah.
But yeah, a good pick, Clint. So I'll take my last one, and sorry, it's my second last. But Star Control 2.
It is the year 2155. The people of Earth now travel between the stars. Following the sad lessons of the Little War, a unified Earth knew a century of golden peace and prosperity. A glorious dream dashed by the arrival of a hostile armada. Earth and her partners in the Alliance of Free Stars faced a monstrous adversary. The predatory Orquan and its hierarchy of battle thralls. There were many great battles, yet Earth was losing.
On the 3DO. That game just hit everything for me. Space exploration, meeting other races and aliens, making decisions that kill people and not, and influence the galaxy, fighting mismatched battles. Like, it was really neat. Like, everyone had their strengths and weaknesses out of the races.
Yeah.
And so you really had to pair them up right and or unpair them up right, depending on what you're doing. But I like some of the decisions you had to make in that game really dragged me in. And in the 3DO version versus the PC version, because I played both, they had voice acting in the 3DO version, and it made the game that much more impactful to me.
Yeah.
So you can still play it today. It's like there's a whole fan thing called the Orquan Masters, and they have all the voice actors added in and stuff there. But before the 3DO version, there was no voice acting, and and just I like stupid things like remember trading with somebody because they wanted humans for their zoo, and they were like, I love all the little patches of fur all over their bodies and things like that. And if you trade with them and give some of your crew because you need this tech so bad to save humanity, your crew suddenly looks at you differently, doesn't because you just gave away bodies. And of course I did it. I was going for the greater good, but yeah, that game was just amazing to me. But anyway, your turn, man.
I mean, the next one for me, It Takes Two.
Dr. Hakeem, they have to stay together.
Gotta work overtime.
You can't just give up. I wish you could be friends again. What?
Are you ready for the roller coaster ride of your life?
No.
It Takes Two.
Great co-op game.
Exactly. The game itself was great. The gameplay, but just the impact of, the parents fighting, the daughter like having, almost going into divorce, planning on divorcing.
Makes it very real.
Yeah.
For a lot of our friends.
Yeah. And they really put it out there, and we're like, holy crap. And I played it with my wife, and her and I were going through it, and we're just like, well, I'm glad we're not at this, but like, holy crap.
Could you imagine?
Yeah. And the impact of all that stuff, all the arguing and fighting in front of your children, and how much that impacts your children and all that, it was just something else, right? So definitely, I mean, it was one of my top games of last year, for sure, and it's going to be like, it's still I'll go back and revisit it in a couple of years just to
It was a good game.
play through it again.
For me, my kids played it
Yeah.
with me kind of supervising. So, not that people can see this room, but I have a TV over on this side, and the two girls sat here, my older two, played the game, and I would just jump in when they got stuck and couldn't do things. But it was great, watching the story and impact. But it did make me think about, like, many of my friends who've gone through this. And, like, I consider myself very lucky to have been married for so long and not have these problems. Like, I'm hitting 20 years married, and nowadays that's crazy almost. And look how long you've been. Was it 13 or
Right, 10, coming up 10 years
10?
this year.
Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. But like, it's just people don't have that anymore, and there's so many broken marriages. So that very well said. So moving on, my last game that I added to the list, and there's tons of games I could add that now that my mind's we'll go to the honorable mentions, but I would say Halo.
When it seems like all is lost. When it feels as if you have no hope. When you are outnumbered, overpowered, and they've got you cornered. That's when you realize your last best hope is you. Halo, Combat Evolved, rated M for mature.
Yeah.
Halo was incredibly impactful to me. I got so involved with the story, the novels, the comics, the audio. I used to listen to the audio books driving to work.
Yeah.
And it sucked me in. And I wouldn't say like I can relate to the Master Chief, but I could feel to him.
Yeah.
I could feel, like, and the whole universe of the sci-fi stuff, which I love, just hit me. So
yeah, they put you into it, and I mean that's it. Halo's the same on my list. It's the last on my list as well. I mean, even as much as there's a lot of hate for Halo 4, when Cortana sacrificed herself for Master Chief, it cuts pretty deep because she's a main character, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you're right. The books, the audio logs, the games, the comics, the everything. I mean, everyone sees it every time we do a recording. All my Halo stuff in the back.
Yep.
Clearly, it's
you can't see it on mine. Mine's up here and in the other room because we're zoomed in. But both of us, I think, I want to say you're a bigger Halo fan than me, but I'm right on your heels with it. I just love it. To death. It brought me back to gaming, and I've said that before in our shows. So, but just for the sake of time, and we're getting at 13 minutes here. So, but for honorable mentions, I'm going to just spit out a couple and then let you spit out a couple. Mass Effect. I was drawn into that big time. The whole thing. There was a game that I wish they finished. It was supposed to have a second one. Tommy Tallarico was one of the main audio components in the game. I'm not saying that right, but composers.
Yeah.
But Event Rising. I really enjoyed that game back on the original Xbox. I'm going to say Resident Evil because I've always been dabbled in those. And then emotional-wise, Shining Force 2 hit me very well back on the Genesis. I love that game.
Huh.
Well, what about you?
I mean, no, the only one that came really to my head, I mean, Mass Effect, Fable.
Fable, didn't even think of. Yep.
I mean, there's multiple. Shadow of the Colossus is another one on
that's a good one
for
too.
PlayStation.
Yep.
Nintendo games. I mean, pretty much all the Zelda games always kind of get me in a certain way.
No Uncharted mention?
Uncharted is. I mean, I love Uncharted.
Yeah.
But there's no that
same
that type of attachment.
Crap a neck.
Come on, Steve. Come on, we're recording.
Forgot to mute it.
But anyways, that's really it for the honorable mentions here, Steve. So, everybody, thank you for tuning in today, listening to us. Look, we're live together. We're chatting. Hopefully, in the future, we'll have a few more of these. But we're old and have families, and it's hard to get together all the time.
It is.
So, Steve,
as always, keep collecting,
keep gaming,
and keep safe.